Say hello, Joseph.
We live?
Yes. Yay!
All right, we are finally live. All right, guys, sorry about our technical difficulties today. We missed 420 because we were 420. As you can see, we're all here. We are live. You guys are tuned into In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio, live video style. We're zooming from our Facebook page. If you guys want to share this out, real easy to find us. Just go right to our Facebook page, Prohibition Talk Radio, and we're all live. I want to say thank you to everybody in the room today. We have a special guest that we're really excited to talk to today, Thomas. We have two Thomases on the show today. Thomas Popke from OPIA Farms, which we're really excited to talk to. Doing a lot of cool things. Big supporter of the show, so we're really excited to talk to you. Especially being grow season, all the things going on, and how this COVID-19 is affecting all of us. So, you guys want to give us a shout out again? Go to our page, like it, love it, show us some love if you haven't already. We're going to start sharing it out. Anyways, lots of crazy things going on in the cannabis world today. Tim, how you doing today? Thomas, see we have Timothy Fair joining us from Vermont Cannabis Solutions. We want to say hi to you real quick. Tim, how you doing?
There we go. Doing great. Doing great. Good to see you, man.
It's great to see you, man. Man, time flies when you're having fun in lockdown, right? I feel like I just talked to you guys the other day. I'm obviously late again. I figured I'd take a shower and shave, and hopefully it was worth it.
Looking good.
Looking good. So we also have Thomas Marcombe of Vermont Grow Coaching joining us.
Glad to see you again. Unfortunately, you were a little late today, but we love you anyway.
Well, I wasn't late. It just
all the viewers are just expecting to see us come on a little late,
Yeah, well, I gave them a little bit of smoke time, I guess, right? And we also have Brendan. We also have our OLCC certified cannabis expert, friend, co-host, DJ, Brandon Barberio.
What's up? How y'all doing? How y'all feeling?
We're doing great, man. We're doing great. It's another Wednesday, man. We've had a great, interesting week in the cannabis industry. We'll probably hop in some news really quick right here. One of the biggest things that I read today, and it's going to be another hot button topic, and I don't think they're ever going to get away from the news, man. I don't know if anybody saw this or if it's just been me, but anyways, if you guys, head on over to the High Times website, you'll see that their new CEO, Stormy, is not a part of High Times anymore. So it looks like the CEO has stepped down from High Times, which leaves an interesting question to be, what, where, when, and why, because she just joined about 6 months ago. But again, it looks like the CEO of High Times is stepping down right as we talked about last week, merged into the distribution business, the growing business, the dispensary business, right? So they're shutting down. She's stepping out. We'll wait to see what happens here. Big news, though, over the last week was the legal cannabis industry has contributed nearly $4 billion to Canada's industry. So $4 billion in a year is what they received in taxes. It's amazing, right? It's a huge country. It's what we're looking for in America. Right now, everybody's talking about the COVID-19 restarts and how important maybe federal legalization can be. There's a lot of blueprints coming out. New Zealand has a blueprint going in. A lot of different things going on, guys. So stay tuned for that. The news is buzzing with, again, the national stuff. Are we going to get a blueprint? Are we going to go legal? Can we include this into something before the next presidency? Because as we know, if Biden is elected, I don't think we're going to get anywhere with legalization on a national level. Trump has repeatedly said that he was going to stand behind legalization. We haven't really seen anything in that aspect yet, but hopefully, right before this COVID thing, I think we were going in the right direction. But, now obviously everything's
Can I throw my 2 cents in on that one? I mean, I don't think we really have anything to worry about with Biden, really, since he's a known pedophile and he likes to rape women. I think that really kind of...
I hate him.
I think that really kind of takes him right out of the whole running. I don't think we have to...
Well, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you by any means. I mean, on a political level, we don't really, get into the politics side of things because, there's obviously hot topics on every side. But I totally agree. I mean, obviously, unfortunately, it looks like we're heading for a Trump re-election. I just don't think Biden will get that far. And again, it's as a supporter of him prior as a vice president, I don't see anything that makes me want to vote for him now. No offense to anybody who's a Biden supporter or anything out there. But I mean, that raises a big question. Where are we going to be within the next year? A year from now, where are we going to be as a nation? Where are we going to be federally, and where are we going to be on even just state governments? Because
shot in the dark, Trump's a business guy. Okay, federal legalization, that's a lot of money. Well, I mean, 3 weeks ago, he's already pissing in everyone's pools because he nationalized the Federal Reserve into the Treasury. So the first time ever, the Federal Reserve is actually an actual federal government institution that we control. So, I mean, if we're already going down that road, I don't see why not. I mean, to be honest with you, I think he's probably the best bet we got for legalization, to really be fair.
I agree with you. I'm hoping he'll catch on to the idea that the tax dollars will actually do some benefit, and it should just push forward. And the way with this COVID thing going on, they can just steamroll it and just really go, hey, let's do it. Look what Canada did. Look whatever. Let's just do it.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. I mean, obviously, the big conversation now is the tax revenue to get the country back in order after we go back to work. I mean, a lot of states have started to go back to work. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I guess that's a conversation for later that we can discuss. Another couple cool things, guys, that are going on that, if you're in the hemp business, right? The USDA released guidelines for federal hemp business loans. So right now, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has released guidelines for hemp companies to apply for and receive federal loans. The guidelines, which are detailed in a memo issued last month, were part of the USDA's aim to align the federal hemp industry with other agriculture commodities. One piece of that effort is establishing the framework for hemp farmers to acquire federal loans. So this is a huge, huge, huge announcement. Marijuana Moment reported this earlier today, actually, or yesterday. So, I mean, Tim can chime in on this later when we talk to Tim about this, but this is going to be huge news for all our hemp farmers. To get loans, especially, next is going to be insurance, loans, things like that to help keep these guys up on the flow, especially, again, after this COVID-19 thing, where these farmers stand and things of that nature. Next, guys, and one thing I want to talk about is CBD brand in sponsorship talks with the Premier English Club. So as you guys know, the Premier English Club is a professional soccer team, and CBD brand Swiss X is reportedly in contact with them to sponsor the team, which will be one of the first big sponsorships in professional sports. We saw the Patriots back a brand, but we haven't seen a brand be a sponsorship on any sort of level. We've seen the Super Bowl ads come down that had CBD talk with them in it. So this is another huge thing going on for sports. We're going to have to talk about this a little bit later. Again, with what the effects can be and how far that can go. But as far as professional sports go, it seems like the professional sports are turning towards cannabis, right, guys? I mean,
100%. That's already happened. That's way already happened. 2 years ago, you had the Olympic Trilateral Commission reverse all their feelings on the recovered use of CBD, THC therapy for athletes, and then it just went down the line. I mean, it seriously went right down the line. Golf, hockey, football, basketball, baseball, they're all on the same board now. Everybody's in the same area.
Right, we even have the UFC, boxing. I mean, these guys are coming out. And, even if they're sports that are not in support of cannabis, we're seeing these guys come out saying that they're using it, right? Like, we saw Nick Diaz come out, and smoke a joint on a stage in the middle of a press conference, right? So,
Exactly.
People are trying to make this known that it's really working for them, which is great. We love seeing especially when the sports franchises stay behind it, like we saw Major League Baseball earlier this year. It makes it really hard for everyone to turn a blind eye to it. You know what I mean? Especially with these big sports teams that have teams in different states with different laws. Because before, if your state was legal, still could not, if you're a pro athlete, use CBD or any sort of products, because obviously there's a chance that you could potentially test dirty. I mean, you don't want to lose your $1 million contract over cannabis or being fined or have games taken away, which is pretty much what will happen. As far as that guys goes, I mean, there's really not much other major news. I mean, there's stocks everywhere. There's sales numbers coming in from all over the place. Everybody's up in sales right now, especially right now because, again, people are still need their medicine. People are still doing curbside deliveries. If you're in a state that does curbside deliveries, guys, or does dispensaries, just call your local dispensary. Make sure and see if you guys can get curbside delivery. Other than that, like I said, there's not much news going on because of just the way we are, as far as in a standstill with government and then everywhere. It seems like there's a lot of state legislature going back into office and zooming right now, and it looks like cannabis is on the ballot, right? Tim, we'll talk to him a little bit later about what's going on there, and making sure that he lets us know where we're at, if we're anywhere newer or closer than we were last week. But anyways, guys, that's a little bit of the local and federal news. I just wanted to speed you up there. But right now we're going to talk to Thomas Popke, who's, again, OPIA Farms. Thomas, let us know a little bit about the farm, what you guys are doing, where you're located, and, a little bit of the effects that you guys are seeing right now with COVID-19.
So we're OPIA Farm in Heinsberg, Vermont. So we operated a chicken vegetable farm for quite a while. But my hand in genetics and breeding and doing guerrilla growing, have done things for quite a long time. But getting up to the modern, more legal stage, we're going to try to actually produce seed genetics for the legal market. So there may be some chance to actually sell some flower itself, but it would be more about providing stable genetics to the public. So we have some pretty interesting projects in the works now, but I'm very big into breeding into some CBD into the THC mix. So it doesn't necessarily, like everybody worries about a high THC number, but I've smoked some bud that had some good CBD numbers in them, were also 17%, but got you just obliterated. And I think it's that combo of the cannabinoids. So we have some interesting things in the works, and with legality approaching where we can actually increase our numbers and run effective testing, it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. We talk a lot about genetics, right? We talk a lot about THC numbers and what people do. It seems like a lot of us are going back to like real plant genetics, right? I mean, medicine-wise.
Oh, definitely.
Way to go.
Oh, so like, for example, this one cultivar that I'm working with that I'm really excited about, that we've kind of pre-labeled it called Thunderella, and it's using MTF, which is, people have heard of it as Alaskan Thunderfuck or Matanuska Thunderfuck. And so it was smoke that I got back in late 90s. That was like a buddy of mine, his brother was river rafting and going to University of Alaska. So we got ruderalis seeds back then when nobody heard of autoflower. And also some of that bud. And so some seeds from it started this project. And my love for Rick Campanella's Cinderella 99, I worked with two very, one was this common male that came from Cinderella 99, and then a very uncommon phenome male. One went on to breed Thunderella that I'm doing, and the other one, Nor'easter 99. And so the MTF is more, I don't want to call it a direct land race because I don't know, we don't really know MTF's history. We have guesses and whatnot, but it just landed when the Alaskan pipeline was being done in the late 70s. It was just smoke people were bringing in, so it was imported in. And some growers kind of ran with it. So currently, if you try to get MTF, it's definitely a hybrid cross to some other thing or whatnot. But the direct, true MTF that I've worked with closely, a lot of the people in Alaska, to not only get other phenomes of that, but give the phenomes that I have to them.
Mm.
So, and then also there's a lot of land race projects, which I like because anybody can just turn around and be like, I got the beans from this company and I have the beans from this one, and I'm going to mate them out, and I've got an offspring. Well, that doesn't create anything new. That just makes a little bit of something we've already seen before. And the way to do that is I'm interested in using the landrace genetics to influence not just THC but also CBD. We may be able to make some new cultivars that are CBD that we can breed out the THC to the level needed.
Right. I mean, we talk about 1-to-1, right? Being a great product, right?
Absolutely.
Is it possible? I mean, I've talked to a lot of people about actually breeding a real straight strains that are real 1-to-1s.
Right. I mean, well, you know as well as I do, Joe, that, you know, the original breeder of MTF is Jeff Wells. We know that.
Yes.
He's got the original landrace MTF in Alaska. So, you know, and going along with what Thomas is saying, okay, now that's what I'm sorry, I'm a little off point, but the point I'm trying to make basically is we have that knowledge. He has that knowledge. I don't think there's a lot of people out there that really do. So for someone like Tom to literally impose that knowledge to the public because we don't get to expand on it, a lot of people aren't going in literally hearing about all the different crosses, the phenomes, the hybrids that are coming out from the original people, you know?
Yeah, but is part of this problem, like what we just said at the beginning of this show, right? Everyone's breeding for THC, right? Like, so another common thing we see with a lot of breeders is that, you know, they're pheno hunting. They're looking for the one that produces the best. They're looking for the one that produces the most numbers, and then they throw everything else away, right? I mean, that's not really. I mean, we're looking for something opposite here. I mean, we're looking for medical strains. We're looking for, you know, he's breeding it out so he can get a 1-to-1, right? So he's looking at it from a different viewpoint. So again, it really depends on your viewpoint as a grower and what you're trying to.
Well, it's just in my personal thought, like if you actually, I know, Joseph, you know Rick's work really well at Brothers Grimm Seeds. And
Yes.
so when he got the genetics in Amsterdam from that original Jack Rare bag or whatever that had a, you know, mystery father, the offspring shot up better numbers. So you could be pheno hunting and go, oh, I have this male and I tested the THC after flower and it's not as good and so on and so forth. It could pump something out, more potential. There are hereditary traits you're not seeing in that right there or the female version of that can come from that. And so I still like high amplified high. I'm hoping this Nor'easter project just blows your mind because it's lineage, MTF, or not MTF, Cinderella 99 and the birthday bomb just have that effect. Like, absolutely. But it basically, for me, I don't really care where it tests at. I mean, it sucks when you're trying to enter a cup. You have to have that high number to win.
Right.
But just the same. I also, my sister, we went to the Harvest Cup this last fall. And from this one breeder, we got a bunch of different seeds from a bunch of different breeders. But my sister got this one from this breeder in Maine. And so it was called Widow. And she's now just about to harvest it, the first batch from it. And so it was AC/DC crossed with Blue Dream crossed with Blue Diesel, then crossed with AC/DC or something. But my father has inflammation issues. He's broken joints early on in life, so he just has a lot of pain. And so she's growing it for that. Now, there are those cultivars, but because all the breeders want to just get the highest they can, they're not looking at any of those. They don't care about that. There's not necessarily a common market for that. And I don't think that's the case because I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, my sister and I went to a Massachusetts medical dispensary and bought this strain called TARDIS. It said right on it tested at 17%. So we had been smoking things that were way higher than that. And all of a sudden it was like you smoked it and you were just like in another realm. Still to the point where I was like, we're getting seeds and we're doing that. I don't care what pheno they have, but I'm sure they didn't optimize when they harvest that. So it gets better than that. And so we've even forwarded that project. So a THC number doesn't always say a heck of a lot for the actual effect.
No, I mean, again, actually, I was in this conversation earlier today, talking about like the cryo-cure process versus a naturally cured process and what the cryo process can save in cannabinoids. So how that smoke can be really different than you know, a regular cured smoke. And like what you're saying, it really depends on your end goal. Like, you know, we were talking about it in press terms. We have like a fresh press versus a regular rosin, right? Fresh press is you're retaining cannabinoids. So depending on what your cannabis is for. Again, when you're doing medical stuff, right? We're not looking for high THC numbers, right? We're looking for the most effective cannabinoid that can work with somebody for a particular reason. That's why we do like a lot of our strains of the weeks, discussing strains, because like you were saying, the widow is a great strain for a lot of people, right? So if you can grow this strain, what I suggest to people that are patients and want to grow is find the 3 strains that work best with you: an indica, a sativa, and something that a hybrid of some such that you can, if you're going to grow it out, that you can literally have for all 3 stages of your day. Hey, you got to wake up, you smoke your sativa, you got to go to work, you smoke your hybrid, so you can kind of stay not so stoned, and then when you want to go to bed, boom, it's get that couch lock indica that's going to pee night you, and you're out. You know what I mean? And your day's done, and that way, I think most patients don't even think about that too much. They're always looking for one strain, and then when they really need it, the opposite time, like say, hey, all I smoke is indicas, and now you're at night wondering, or all you smoke is sativas, and now at night you wonder why you can't sleep. Your heart's racing. You know what I mean? Your mind's racing. I do the same thing to myself all the time. I love sativas. And next thing you know, it's 3:00 in the morning. I'm like, what am I going to do? But if you had a heavy indica, then I'm going nights. You know what I mean? Most people, need to look at it this way. The Cinderella cross is a great cross. I'm excited to see what you come up with that. Rick Campanella's stuff is amazing. We're trying to get Rick actually on the show here soon. We've reached out. We've been in talks. I do actually have some seeds of the Brothers Grimm, which is their Amnesia G13, they call it, crossed with the 99, which is what they call Killer Queen.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to check that out. He just posted a picture of it on his page of a flower that looks just absolutely amazing of this cross. So I'm really excited to get some of their seeds going. But, everybody, and if you don't know, a little bit of the Cinderella 99 story, it's an amazing story. Just go check it out. You can Google it. It's everywhere. Rick's been doing some amazing stuff. He's all over the world right now doing some amazing things. So hopefully we'll get him on the show. But now as far as you guys go, I mean, here we are. We're in Vermont. The weather's been nuts lately, right? Are you doing everything in a greenhouse? Are you outdoors? How do you prefer your grow method?
So it's co-op grows. So I have certain locations that are through the grower themselves. I do advisement and whatnot, and so the testing that they do. So say I have a certain pheno and I got to pick the best of whatever, and they're flowering it out. I provide most of the stuff, but then therefore, we're co-op growing and they get to keep the product, but I get to be able to do all the tests and whatnot. So it has a great benefit. The Nor'easter 99 to go to its final stabilizing round, I'm going to do outdoor this fall. I'm going to do it all with big couple plants and pollinate them with the same male. And then that will be released to the public. And already it's extremely promising, but I'm very excited for it for sure. The birthday bomb is the mother that was used, and that entered the Harvest Cup when it first came out. So they had let somebody test beans for it before they even released it, and he won the Harvest Cup. So it was 2 years, or no, took second place. I'm sorry, but I got it through my friend or my sister's friend, and since I've got to know the breeder in Maine really well, and so it's really nice stuff.
Nice.
So it's some greenhouse, some inside. It's just whatever I can. I mean, again, with legalization, I look forward to really putting it all together with some indoor and greenhouse extension to be able to utilize the sun in the warmer months for sure. I also want to really work on creating cultivars that can grow in our weather. That's really interesting because there's a lot of great ones that you just can't grow outside unless you have a greenhouse. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard for people. So, and everything that we do is all organic. So I'm a big fan. You can see with the hat, Coast of Maine. I use a bunch of their stuff. For my indoor grows are a little bit different than the outdoor beds that we do. The outdoor beds are pretty much all our own soils, from the chicken manures from our chickens, down to compost that we produce and so on and so forth. Sometimes we'll add the pure light or different things that we have to lighten up a bed or whatnot. But the indoor, it's a big part mix. So it's some of our own soil concoctions, and then some of Coast of Maine's products, and then nutrients. My sister really loves Cold War Organics. which I do use, but I'm really just a compost tea man. That's what I do. It's all super soil. It's mainly pH water all throughout, and that's what I do. But because in certain grows, in my co-op grows, it's not everybody just can't make a compost tea. So I that because they have results. Mm-hmm. But on all grows, I use 2 products that really just nail it down for me. Besides having the microbials that are in my own soils and teas, fish shit, I'm sure you've heard of, which is just unreal. That's why I like Costa Maine, because I get from my soils the mycorrhizae that's in the forest, ground. But getting that sea life really does a lot. And I've been a fan of fish shit for a long time. But a local Vermont company is Essence of the Sea. And so they're a growth stimulant. It's fermented seaweed. So it's kind of similar to the fish shit, where it's got those microbials all like just stimulated. I find the balance of the 2 of them together. I used to use mammoth pea, and I still can, but it's kind of not necessary. These 2 really do it. And so my mom uses them on our house plants, our bed gardens for our veggies to receive this stuff. And so other than that, it's just water.
Yeah. It's the fish it works great, man. I actually use it in my setup, and you definitely see a difference when you use it. Everybody I know that uses it swears by it, but I've yet to hear about the Vermont company, the local company.
Well, definitely, I can get you some to sample out because I came across it. So they're a local couple that owns it, and so they bought the company, I want to say, in the last year or 2. And the original design for the company, I believe, was they were putting it all throughout fields and stuff. And I got bottles years back from the original owner, but they purchased it, and they're really trying to bring it to market. But what the product actually is nothing new to the market. It's just nice to have a Vermont company doing it. So they're literally harvesting the kelp from Maine, fermenting it, and it's activated, and it really just goes wonders. Like as far as any, like go to the store, buy a growth nutrient. You can buy those if you're like, I need my 3 bottles or I need my 2 bottles. This is how my system is. But just adding a good soil to start, adding a top dressing of compost and a few added, microlife, and you got yourself good. Just give it water. And then if you see it kind of needs something, that's where you add a little bit more compost top dressing or something. It doesn't have to be any chemicals. It doesn't have to be overthought. Farmers have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, sometimes you put a little bit too much confusion into it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a plant. So now most of your steps are basically live soil, then, correct?
Oh, all live soils, yes. Mm-hmm. I actually work hard because we evaporate the water because I'm on a town and water municipality. So I evaporate it in chlorines and stuff, and then it's highly filtered, and then it still sits for a long time, and then I'm checking TDS meters and stuff to make sure there's nothing in it. It's ready to go, and then it's just pH water. I mean, I guess if I had like a freak plant going, oh, I need really nitrogen, I do have like, Roots Organics or Cold War Organics or things that I could go to, but usually it's a pretty stable process. Keep it simple.
I mean, especially when you're using town water, I mean, I don't know how many people realize this, but, obviously you have to let your water sit so some of the chemicals will evaporate out of it, right?
I mean,
pH levels are way off.
Oh, they definitely are. So when I'm doing the indoor grows, it's interesting. But for our outdoor, we rain collect because rain has the natural hydrogen peroxide properties to it and the elements. So rainwater is amazing. I mean, there are, obviously a little bit of the issues of acidic rain, so I still kind of pH, but we use rain collection 55-gallon drums with a spigot, and it's relatively simple.
Which is a great idea. A lot of us, some of us are also keen to the wells, because there's a lot of little wells throughout Vermont that you can actually go to collect water, 5-gallon buckets. I have one locally in our town that's amazing water.
Oh yes, there's definitely
so it's so hard to get it.
Spots.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, here in Vermont, we're lucky to have this. I mean, to the people that are listening and watching that are not in Vermont, I mean, if you can find these places, things like that, I mean, it's not a bad idea to mix in some water with a faucet water, right? Because like you're saying, like some of these waters contain nutrients and minerals that we just can't get unless you want to buy lots and lots of bottles of stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
So when now you're working on your pheno hunt project, right? You have a substantial farm that's helping you generate your compost, right? Because a lot of people ask, like, how do I get into no-till? Now that you've been doing it for a while, if someone asks you how do I switch over to a no-till? What are the first things you're going to tell somebody? What are the biggest things that they should be looking for, watching out for? Because I mean, a lot of people, we talk about, like plants that work well with cannabis that will feed your worms, and you have worms because it's a new experience, and we see a lot of people fail, especially when they go to an organic kind of compost, and sometimes it's is it hot? Is it did you use it too quick? What's the hardest part of it?
Well, you're definitely right. I've seen a lot. I know I want to say this was maybe 3 years ago ish. I know some people, I'm not going to say the company that they got the compost from, but they got a boatload dropped off. One of the guys, workers, they were planting a bunch of CBD hemp. And so one of the workers went, wow, that's steaming. And then told the owner after all the seedlings were all planted in these holes pre-dug with this hot compost. Like it was literally steaming, so it still wasn't done. It was going to kill the plants. And so it did. There's definitely, a fine line. I like to highlight growweedeasy.com because it's a great site for anybody and beginners. Also, YouTube is an amazing resource because if you're just simply like, hey, I don't know how my ground soil is, but I kind of want to make my own bed, you can look up videos. Maybe you have a wood lot that you have like birch bark and mulch and different things that you could make a layered bed and different things so that you're no-tilling it. Most annual plants, vegetable plants can grow right along companion with cannabis, and there's a lot of ground covers, like you said, that feed the worms and do good things to it. I always recommend if you're going to do any kind of raised bed of any kind, take some land or some soil from the land itself and add that into it for sure. A lot of people, what's hard in our ground is, originally this region of Vermont was all underwater, so it's all clay. If you're in a sweet spot of already farmed land that's been, amended, sure, but a lot of it's clay, so that's hard for people.
Mm-hmm.
But there are little do-it-yourself pallet garden beds that you can make, or buy a little bit of lumber, some logs from the woods to make a little soil bed to be like, hey, I'm going to grow me a CBD plant or a THC plant, and maybe I'm going to plant some of my vegetables kind of around them, because I'm part Native American, and they used to have the Three Sisters plants. So it was corn, beans, and peas, or whatever you could have. Where the peas vined up around, and the beans were pole beans, so they vined up around the corn, and each one served a purpose, and you benefited in a better way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we talk about substantial gardening or gardening that works well with each other, especially with live soaks. I mean, again, we hear a lot of people have failure conversations where they go in, they try it for a year, they get a run or two through, and then they're like, oh man, forget this. This is not working. And a lot of times we hear it's mainly a soil issue, right? I mean, because these guys, if anybody composts, right? When you compost, it gets hot, right? So when we talk about hot soil, we're talking about actual physically the temperatures within the soil, right?
That's normally what you're talking about is the temperatures in the soil, but there's also soil being too hot was in too much nutrients. Like say you were having a hot soil, like heavy with nutrients, not temperature wise, and you used it on a seedling like sohum soil. It's amazing, but you can't really grow an autoflower if you wanted to in it right off because it just kind of overpowers it. It's like, oh wow, I'm shocked. So we're referring to the temperature hot. It's not done composting. But there also is the soil being too hot, like too high levels of nutrients.
Yeah, which will also wreak havoc on your plants.
Oh, it very well can. I mean, you can have nutrient lockout, lots of bad things. That's why there's a very fine line, sweet spot. I mean, I really have it dialed in where I know from the start, I'm like, this is how long I want to keep this plant alive. I'm adding this much of this compost, this and this. it should do a couple tea dressings, throughout its life, and other than that, it's just pH water.
Yep. I mean, it doesn't need much. Most people read the back of the bottles and see what the recommendations are and go, "Oh, I can give it a little bit more." Next thing you know, they're burning up leaves and they're going to a.
Oh yeah, everybody wants to add a bunch more because they're hoping that that's the miracle cure for just getting bigger butts, and that's not. It's dialing, and cannabis is a decent heavy feeder, but it has to be fed appropriately. And so, like, a lot of people don't even there's a lot of growers that don't even have a pH pen, and I'm like, how? Unless your water from your well is perfect pH, how the heck are you not locking out all your nutrients?
Right. I mean, that's a great question. And I'm not gonna lie, as an earlier grower, I was like, I never had a pH pen. I never worried about it. I just let my water evaporate like everybody told me, which doesn't do anything for your pH. If anything, it probably brings it up a little bit. Then there's nutrients that claim to have 0 pH, right? They're pH balanced. They're going to be okay to use in any of your water, but then again, it doesn't bring down your pH. So people are using these nutrients going, hey, I can use this nutrient. It says it'll balance my water. So, I mean, it's a game. It can be a hard lesson to learn, especially with the live soil. So, I mean, that's the thing where I see a lot of people really have failure rates because most of the other areas, right? And Thomas can chip in on this because he also deals with a lot of different people that go from soil to hydro to live soil. And I mean, when we say just regular soil, we're talking like
happy frog and ocean forest up to people making their own soil in their backyard and cooking it for 30 to 60 days before they actually use it.
Right.
A lot of the customers and clients that I work with don't really care, unfortunately, whether or not they're growing organically or not. So that leaves it up to me to try to push them in that direction. There's a lot of nutrients out there and stuff. A lot of big companies out there that advertise and have a lot of money throw around and say, oh yeah, our stuff is the best. It's going to make your buds huge. It's going to make them fantastic. You should do this. When in reality, you, just like Thomas mentioned, if you give a plant the proper environment, the proper amount of organic nutrients, and proper pH water, and actually take care of the plant, you can produce an equally large, healthy plant. It may not grow quite as fast as a hydroponic plant, but who cares? Just when it comes down to the plant's health, if the plant is healthy and the plant has a healthy life, you have a healthier smoke or a healthier consumable product.
I mean, obviously, genetics do have a little bit to do with it, or a lot to do with your success rate. It'll just be a lot easier to deal with. But I mean, there's many different ways to boil an egg, like we talk about all the time on the show. Whether you're doing hydro, whether you're doing live till, no-till, live soil, whether you're doing super soils, whether you're doing window. You know what I mean? There's many different ways to make these plants grow. But the thing is the one thing that we always talk about is the chemicals. You know what I mean? The products that you put into it. You can get good ones, you get bad ones, but you don't need a lot of it, right? So Tom, now working at the farm, going from to cannabis, you seem to have like a nice little hormonal thing going here. What's the plan for OPIA Farms? Like, obviously, you guys have genetics, so if somebody reach out to you, what do you have available? How are you operating OPIA?
Okay, so primarily right now it has just been through Facebook and Instagram. We have a social media following there also. But I've actually got opiafarmgenetics.com. It's just the website's under construction right now because I'm really revamping it, and I've kind of been doing it myself. So it's been a little bit of a slow couple of days trying to get time to work on it. But that'll be back up and running, and that's going to have a lot of informative information to do with cultivating. Not just organic. I do want to cover some recommendations because I do know there's a lot of growers that love growing in coco coir. So, I do have a lot of knowledge in chemical growing. I just personally don't do it. So I want to add some just really balanced information, and there I will also feature not just my own genetics, but a lot of local genetics from other reputable breeders and other people from around the States.
There's a lot of great genetics over here.
Oh, there really is. There really, really is. I mean, I have nothing against Canada or Amsterdam by any stretch of the means, but we have some really top-notch breeders that are really doing some great stuff. And I've worked hard, just sharing information with them. Just getting back, trying to get different advice on different projects. So at the same time, when they've said, "Hey, I'm working on this one. Give me the seeds. I want to get it out there." People come back to me. I have certain people who go, "Hey, I have to have this one breeder," and so I've built a rapport and a good working relationship. So basically, if anybody's looking for actually cannabis genetics, even CBD, THC, CG, whatever, they can, reach out to us.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said you're obviously you're engineering some for medical purposes. You're trying to get some for one-to-ones. You're trying to work on that angle. Now, obviously, we're coming into grow season right now. Do you have any advice for people that are going to be growing outdoors?
Certainly I do. I mean, for starters, whatever a person feels, a lot of people container grow. So if you're going to grow in a container, I recommend the grow bags over a plastic pot. That breathability lets you really get to figure out. You can pick it up when it's dry. Do you need to water now? Do you not? Really picking a good soil, even for a beginner that's going to use like Fox Farm or something like that. Just really go and do some research. Spend a little bit on YouTube learning about what the plant needs, what the plant doesn't, when it might need it, when it does not. There's lots and lots of resources there. And again, OPIAFarmgenetics.com will feature a lot of links and so forth to kind of send people in the right direction. But basically the biggest advice I have for us local growers is make sure you pick good genetics, because if you're going to spend the whole season hoping and praying, make sure you got something that's worth growing to start with, and also make sure it's been proven that it can grow in our type of climate, because you don't want to get stuck with, I see time and time again, somebody spent all season long and then their plant started flowering later than any of the other stuff, and then they ended up with something where when it was time to go, it was not ready, and they were really disappointed.
Right, a lot of people talk about the growth cycles, the growth times. You know what I mean? There's certain genetics out there that will grow really quick, and there's other ones that, like we said, they take a while, right?
Yeah, they need to be grown in California weather or down south, a whole different region. It needs longer time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like we said, there's growers out there that will pick certain strains specifically that don't grow over 8 weeks, or they don't go over 60 days because of our grow season here in New England, right? People will go and buy these great California genetics, but they seem to forget they can be grown almost year round, and there's desert sun out there. We can't replicate that unless it's in an indoor situation. Which is, if you're growing indoors, and you can pretty much grow almost anything you want, but then again, still you're going to have to time things, especially if you're growing multiple strains in your room. So again, you don't have one finishing in 55 days and one finishing in 70 days. And then it throws all your things all over the place, right? Now with you guys, genetics are the time and time again, people always ask about feminization versus non-feminization. The difference to what is the difference in that point? What's the difference in auto flowers and then how that works? Can you give us just a little quick breakdown on those? Because obviously, we were talking before, you have quite a few different options of genetics in multiple different ways, right?
Oh, definitely. So auto flower was so there's cannabis sativa, cannabis indica, and cannabis ruderalis. They actually kind of what they really know about those three classifications is kind of very vague and whatnot. And some can kind of lean really towards the other. But originally when they had the three standard deviations, so sativa and indica are photoperiod, so they operate by the solstice. It senses how much light it's getting and knows when it's time to do its flowering cycle, so it's done in optimal time. Cannabis in the wild, it wants to live on, so it's an annual plant, so it needs to make seeds. It wants to know it can do it in enough time to continue on. But auto flower, they use ruderalis, and so ruderalis was grown in northern Russia and the Soviet Union, regions. So their light cycle was like Alaska. So it had tons of amounts of light. So it basically, it's a mutation in cannabis that instead of going by a normal solstice, it kind of just went by time. So ruderalis is a very runty version of what the current autoflower is. So by breeding the two, you have yourself a plant that it goes by time. Now, if you shock an autoflower, I've seen them take a lot longer, but traditionally they know start to finish, no matter how much light you give them. As long as it's adequate lighting to grow cannabis, you'll be done start to finish. So that's actually an option for people to grow early season crops, which I highly suggest. There's regular photoperiod, which is where you would use a regular male and a female, and the offspring, the seeds would be capable of being a male or a female. And then there's feminized, which is using certain hormones to get a female plant to produce male parts so that it can pollinate itself. But because there's no male chromosomes in there, the offspring would all be feminized, female. So that's an option for a lot of people that just don't have a lot of room, and they're like, wow. I'm not a big fan of it because I really like working with males. So males for me are important. Also just the same. It's just, I'm old school, so I'm just used to that. You find a good female and you make a mother and you take cuttings, and that's how you get it. So, but people that, want to start at home and don't have access to cuttings, feminized is a way so that you're not investing a bunch of effort and end up with a male plant.
Now, with feminized, though, there's no guarantee, right? I mean, we've seen a lot of people mess up rooms because they buy seeds. There's still a chance you're
definitely. Well, in not just feminized, but in regular seeds, there's bad breeding, so you get hermaphrodation, which is where either a male or a female will adapt to the other's, gender and grow that part. So you'll get a female, a cola bud, and it'll get a little bit banana pepper looking growth on it, male part, and open up and pollinate, and then you got all the seeds. And under a lot of cases, that's really where it's bad, because people are like, oh, wow, I got some seeds in my bud. I'm going to keep that and grow it. Well, you're doing it from a hermaphroditic lineage, so you're more likely then going to end up with the same problem down the road. Even if it skips a one, you might find it in every other seed, so your buddy might be screwed thinking he got good seeds.
No, and then
I think you're running into the same issues. I think you run into the same issues with a lot of the older breeders that are coming out of like Amsterdam and Spain and everything. You've got a lot of like the new and up and coming breeders out of the U.S. that are taking really good care of their plants. They have really good genetic practices so that when they're breeding, they don't end up with a plant that's anything but stable. It may not be the highest THC, but they have a nice stable plant that you can stress in different ways and not have to worry about herming. Then you've got some older breeders. I'm not going to mention names, but like some older big name breeders from like Amsterdam, for instance, they used to have really good genetics. They just somewhere along the line, they screwed up somewhere. So now it's just really, really easy to end up with hermaphrodites from one of their plants from just the lightest amount of stress, whether it be a little light leak or too much nutrients or LST. So when it comes down to it, I think the breeders in the U.S., especially the local breeders around New England, are really going to be the ones to look for. And OPIA Farm seems to definitely know what they're talking about.
Well, thank you.
I've seen some great genetics, guys, and I'm going to say this a lot, and I'm going to give a big shout out to a lot of people throughout New England. There's some really good genetics on here. I am really excited to pop a bunch of these genetics that I've gotten throughout from people. We've got quite a few that we're going to play with here, and I know exactly. Whereas, but like again, we talk about genetics, guys. So I mean, we can go buy a seed of, let's say, Acapulco Gold, and we can go get a really good genetic of an Acapulco Gold seed, and they're going to grow two different plants, right? Obviously. Even with seeds, we talk about phenohunt. So for the people that are tuned in that don't understand phenohunt, and when you grow from a seed, it's not guaranteed to be the exact same plant. So I can't tell you how many times I've talked to growers. I'd be like, oh, I bought a 10-pack. And then you look at their plants, and on that 10-pack, 6 of them are completely different, right? I mean, they don't look like each other. There may be a couple that look like each other. And this is kind of what we consider phenohunting. This is what Thomas was kind of poking on earlier, is you try to source out that best plant, right? Then you make it into a mom. And then from there, you can get your clones. Now, your clones are direct genetics from that mother plant that your breeder chose, right? Now, guys, as we all know, breeders going to have their commercial plant. They're going to have their little baby that they keep in a vault. You know what I mean? And then this is where your pricing when you really matters. And we brought up like Rick Campanella earlier with the Brother Grimm seed. There's another genetic company that great genetics. You know what I mean? There's a lot of small genetic companies like OPIA Farms, Ice Coast Farms, Ice Leaf Farms, or Ice Pedal Genetics. There's a lot of great New England-based companies that do genetics. And a lot of these growers do our own genetics because, again, we put the time and research into it. So when you're getting cuts or clones from these people, if that's what you're trying to get, then you're usually guaranteed a better genetic. Now, again, I talk about feminized seeds all the time because, as we all know here in Vermont, and Tom, you're in Vermont as well. We saw a big issue last year with the hemp seeds in fields that people just were buying bulk commercialized seeds, thinking they're feminized, and half their fields are turning males. And we also talk about herming out your plants. We've heard this word a lot from both you and both Thomases today, right? Now, not only does it have to do with genetics, but we can hermaphrodite our plants quite easily just by growing, right?
Oh, definitely, by stressing them. So as Thomas was saying so lightly, so in a flowered room, if you have where you're leaving your tent open or just different variables, too hot of temperatures, not so much too cold temperatures, but I guess that could make a hermaphrodation. Basically all the variables really bad stressing out and on different levels. And so that's what talking about genetics. Hopefully the stable breeders are working with ones that they've tested. Like on mine, I literally nutrient burn them. I stress them. I put paper bags over them. I do all sorts of darkness, light, too much. Because if at any point I ever see a banana pepper anywhere or in a male, the opposite, it growing, female parts, I'm like, oh, that lineage is done. Yeah. And so you want to make sure that doesn't happen. Same thing with stabilization, like you said, about talking about, buying that 10-pack and having 6 different plants. What's nice about is us reputable breeders that have our programs together, like Brothers Grimm's, and especially you mentioned Ice Pedal Flower Genetics. You buy a 10-pack of Maui cream pie from them, and you are pretty much getting Maui cream pie every single day, or saying a single time. Maybe there's a slight, minuscule little difference, but they really have taken the additional rounds to stabilize it, so you're getting what you pay for.
Yep, they're great show friends, and unfortunately, I've been able to try many different strains and many different strains of the same, or many different cultivars of the same strain, phenos. You know what I mean? Where they're pheno hunting and they come up with this crazy pheno that's just it's mind-boggling. But you're right. I mean, a lot. Again, this is why these genetic companies are very important. Talk to genetic companies. Make sure they're just not farming out genetics. I mean, males have a value to a lot of people. But again, if you buy a feminized seed, don't guarantee that your grow is going to be. Again, I probably talked to 5 people in the last month that were like, I went in my room and I had a bunch of males. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, it must be I hermied them, I stressed them, and it's like, well, why? If you're practicing the same techniques on all your plants, then you probably would have done to most of your plants if they're the same plant. You know what I mean? But if you have did you check? Do you look now, guys? Real quick, while I have you to show, the show's going to wrap up real quick. When can you start checking for males and females for people tuning in? Because that's the number one question. How do I check? People talk about sending their plants in for testing. When is too far? When does it destroy a room?
I can let Thomas answer that. I've taken up a lot of the time.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate that. No worries, though. So when it comes down to it, for me, with checking for males, I usually actually like to put the plants into darkness to test for males, usually 3 to 4 weeks after they've started vegetating. With most strains that I've worked with, at 3 weeks in the vegetative stage, if you put them into darkness for a couple of days and then put them back into a 12-12 light cycle, you'll start to see pre-flowering and sex within a couple of days if you haven't already seen it sooner. There are a few strains that will take a little bit longer, but for the most part, I found that 3 to 4 weeks on most strains is more than adequate to be able to determine sex. And at that point, you should actually be able to see pre-flowers way before you actually have to worry about any pollen actually dropping through in your room.
Right. Now, I think the biggest misconception is way the sacs look, right? Because when we talk about sacs, when people ask about how to tell a male from the female, it's a little sac buds that come up right at the base of the bud. Now, the ones that are just like balls, right, are the males, but the ones that actually have the little stems are females, correct?
Yeah, so there's a difference between the female calyx and the male sac. So the male sacs are actually shaped more like footballs that have little lines going down the sides of them, where they'll actually open up almost like banana peels when they finally pollinate, whereas the female calyx actually has almost what looks like a little scorpion hook on the top of it. With the male balls, a good considerable amount of the balls or the male sacs are actually on slightly elongated stems, whereas you don't find that in the female calyx.
I mean, that's where a lot of people get really confused. A lot of people ask this question. I see it on every chat room, every page, every week. Somebody's asking about their flowers, right? Because they're like, oh, I bought a feminine seed and I popped this seed and I got this, and then all of a sudden we're here, right? Real quick, let's shift gears. I want to go to Brandon with our strain of the week. We've been talking about strains and things like that of this nature. Is he there? Is he actually there?
Oh, yeah, of course I'm here.
There he is. Let's talk about strain of the week, bud. We're talking about strains. We're talking about genetics. We're talking about all these great things. We're learning a lot today. We're educating some of our listeners about different things. We've got a bunch of questions going on social media. What do you get for a strain for us, bud?
I'm going with my personal favorite. Okay. So this week we're going to do skunk number 1.
There we go.
So the thing that really interests me the most about this is lineage more than anything else. Okay. I mean, I can sit here and tell you THC percentage levels and, all that, and I will. But what really, really interests me is this is literally known as one of the most famous strains of cannabis of all time. Okay. It was literally born 3 decades ago in Holland. The breeders crossed multiple strains from South and Central America, Thailand, and Afghanistan. So this has got some deep history. The result became a stable, and when it was stable, they figured how to grow it so that it basically became a staple in itself and spawned countless hybrids. And of course, obviously, many different genetics. True to its name, skunk smells like skunk. Duh. It's across 35-65 sativa indica ratio. It's a very deep, relaxing high. It's great for chronic pain, depression, fatigue, stress. It's real great for headaches, and if you have lack of appetite, it definitely helps with that as well. I actually had a chance to pick up some landrace skunk number 1 this weekend. I actually went out camping, and I got to tell you, it's amazing bud. I really, really enjoy it, and I highly recommend it for any patient.
It is definitely amazing. But now, with skunk, though, we have skunk 1. There's a couple different phenols out there that we talk about all the time, right? Because we have skunk 1, and then we have the roadkill skunk, which is what a lot of people talk about, which is that classic smell. But what a lot of people don't realize is some of these skunk phenols aren't classically a stinky strain when you grow it, but like it's very aromatic. It's very nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, skunk 1 is...
it's very enjoyable to smoke. I mean, I actually really enjoy smoking it out of my bubbler because I love the way that it tastes, and like I said, it's very enjoyable. It's got an amazing taste.
Yeah, I just was able to enjoy some skunk 1 from a local friend of ours of the show here, which was amazing. Definitely can't wait to get some more going here and try some more. It's an amazing strain, guys. So strain of the week, skunk 1. Guys, check it out. Do a little research. If you guys can get your hands on some, it's out there. It's just hard to get. Like we talk about a lot. It's not.
Yeah, it's mostly like West Coast. It's Arizona, California, Nevada, Oregon lineage in the United States more so than it is in the East Coast.
It's a great strain.
Still grows just fine on the East Coast, though.
Right? As we all know, there's a few people growing it out here. But again, it's an amazing. It is a really amazing strain. Everybody talks about skunk and being what it is and how to get it and where to get it because it's always been one of those things that are kind of hard to find, right?
Yep.
There's lots of great strains out there, and that's definitely one of them. Real quick, we're going to switch gears here and go to Timothy Fair, Vermont Cannabis Solutions, talk a little bit of law, order.
What's up, Joe? How are you?
Tim, how you doing today?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. Just learning a lot about cultivation and genotypes, something I don't know much about, so I appreciate the chance to kind of absorb the knowledge. Thanks, Tom.
Right. Well, every week we have an interesting guest, and we always talk about different things, whether it's health-related or law-related or even grow-related. I mean, these are all important things that we got to talk about, especially for the people that are trying to go home, because it can be very intimidating, right?
Absolutely.
You walk into a grocery store and be like, what do I need, and then you can be very heavily influenced into a product that you don't want to grow or a chemical you don't really want to or need to have.
Certain grocery stores care a little bit more about pushing high-priced items than they really do about teaching people to grow.
Right? Well, I mean, there's all different grocery stores out there. I mean, there's grocery stores that really care about the organic side, so they'll push you that way. But, I mean, everything's under an influence. But, again, when we can discuss multiple ways of growing or things to look at, and especially failures. The thing I think nobody talks about enough is the failures. Like we were talking about earlier, like, we see people going to live till, and these are the failures we see. Why would people fucking it up? You know what I mean? Tell me why. Why can't people? Why is the soil? Why is this? And that way it gives a little bit of for me is always is training people. It's like here's why you mess something up, and this is what the effects of the mess up will be. This is why. And you explain it to people, and you seem to have less fuck ups, right? At the end of the day. But here we are, another new week. I appreciate you being on. Not a lot happening again in real news this week, except for a couple of things like we were saying we're going to talk to you about earlier with the English, the Premier League soccer clubs getting sponsorship. I mean, I know this isn't an American soccer club, right? So this is overseas. But what does this do for the sponsorship industry? Like we talk about it a lot, especially here being on billboards now, getting radio ads. Does this push the agenda, or is this just another thing that doesn't mean anything except for sponsorships?
No, it means something, but we have to look at this from two different perspectives. One is the social perspective, one is the legislative and governmental perspective. Something like the sponsorship helps with the social perspective. It helps with normalization. It helps defeat the stigma of cannabis. Any first is a huge thing. Constellation brand, the first major company to buy into Canopy Growth back, that was huge. The first listing on the New York Stock Exchange, the first NASDAQ listing of a cannabis company. These are all huge social steps. They normalize cannabis. They make people more comfortable with it. They see the sponsorships. They see the billboards. They see the advertisements. It's no longer taboo. It's no longer something that needs to be kept, behind closed doors. That is huge for the social aspect. Does the sponsorship really help us reach legalization at the national level in the United States? Probably not. Does it hurt? No, of course not. Every little bit helps because with the social normalization, theoretically in a democracy, you have that influencing your politicians. I think we've gotten a little away from that these days here in the U.S. So from a social perspective, from a normalization perspective, I think it's huge. I love it. I'd love to see the next thing, But we here still have such a Puritan attitude in the United States. I mean, what was it, just 2 Super Bowls ago? They banned a CBD commercial. Now I think if it was to happen again, if we had a Super Bowl this year, I think it would probably get by. I think they could have that type of commercial. And that comes from pushing the envelope socially. So I'm thrilled to see, football, which is huge all over the world, pretty much everywhere but here, take on such a visible role in supporting cannabis.
I mean, we saw the biggest move we saw this summer was baseball, right? I mean, minor leagues, major leagues, right? They went legal. We've talked about this a lot on the show.
They said they were going to stop enforcement actions against players. They're not quite legal. I don't see it.
Well, I mean, I said the wrong way, right? I said the wrong way. I'm thinking about the legality of it. I mean, we've seen these guys go and support and unleash, which obviously helps players, right? So my next biggest question is, we're seeing a lot of these older players that are not in sports anymore. We've seen a couple players, and we talked about it last year, within baseball, basketball, and football that actually took the season off in support of the cannabis agenda. You know what I mean? Saying that if they can't play, using cannabis as their medicine, they're not going to play, right? So now we're starting to see this. When does the endorsements start coming in for these players from these sponsorships? You know what I mean? which is the next big question, is when we're going to see, like a LeBron James getting endorsed by a CBD drink. You know what I mean? That's.
I would say when the CBD companies have enough money to afford LeBron James.
That's the next step, right? I mean, and
the natural progression. Yeah, I don't think we're far off from seeing it. Cannabis is getting, it's big business. It's definitely big business. If it wasn't for this damn health crisis and this coronavirus right now, we'd be seeing a huge increase. The rescheduling and taking off of the controlled substances list and of Epidiolex and making it a over-the-counter medication. I can't stress how important that was. That was probably the single most important piece of news concerning the future of the CBD industry in the last 2 months. Completely overshadowed. I mean, unless you follow this stuff religiously, like I do, you're not going to even notice that. But that opens the doors to CBD edibles, CBD tinctures. All the uncertainty, all the confusion was based on that. Epidiolex being, CBD being a active ingredient in a regulated prescription FDA drug. And that was their whole mantra. You can't put drugs in food. CBD is a drug. You can't put drugs in food. It was what they hung their entire argument on illegality on, which is now just gone. They no longer have that hook to hang their coat. And it really opens up the floodgates, in my opinion, from a legal perspective, for the industry just to accelerate now. I'm very excited about it. But again, everything gets overshadowed right now because of obviously what's going on with the virus.
Right. I mean, we talked about this last week a little bit with them moving forward with, the Epidiolex rescheduling.
It's an over-the-counter. I mean, it was taken off. It's no longer a prescription medication. Where they end up laying it, what regulations that they put around it, fine, but it is no longer an FDA-approved drug. That is the important distinction now. CBD is no longer the active ingredient in a restricted drug. It's really big. In my opinion, that's going to really, really help the CBD industry move forward. But the industry is also already surpassing CBD. I mean, you have CBG, you have CBN, you have the industry expanding above and beyond simply CBD, which is exciting because CBD in itself is, we've talked about this before, it's a modulating cannabinoid. It's not even an active cannabinoid on its own. It works with the other cannabinoids, the other terpenes, or the entourage effect, which is an absolute real thing. But every little bit helps. And seeing CBD come off the schedule, and it's incredible. It's very good to see. It's very promising.
Right.
Promising these days.
Well, it's been huge, and like you said, it's actually really gone heavily overshadowed with the with where we're at in the world today with COVID and stuff like that. Because that happened. We talked about it. Not a lot of people really took it as like great news. They were kind of like, oh, okay, well.
They will. When they fully understand it, we have a chance to kind of see the impact that it's going to have moving forward. It foreshadows FDA regulation, and this is almost now guaranteed to be regulated as, a nutritional or a food supplement. Something that's established, something that has a clear guidelines for what needs to be on labels, something that's a clear guidelines of where it can be sold and who it can be sold to. Given that certainty, that kind of reassurance, which really investors are going to want to see in order to really expand CBD. This is a good opportunity now for small businesses to be able to expand, to access some capital. It will definitely help with banking. We were talking about it a little bit with USDA now, backing federal loans for hemp and CBD manufacturing. These are all components that are really looking promising for the hemp and hemp extracted cannabinoid industry.
The great news about that too is the fact that they're actually doing something still. You know what I mean? They're not putting everything in the back burner per se right now, especially with what's going on in the country.
You got something. Now, when you come to marijuana legalization, that's another story. That's a very different story. That has unfortunately been backburned both at the state and the local level. I mean, all of the progress we saw, all the momentum just came to an absolute crashing halt. And the $64,000 question is it going to be able to regain that momentum when this subsides? If this subsides, I think there's still way too much certainty in the middle of what's probably the largest public health crisis in any of our lives about legalizing marijuana, which obviously I think would be the benefit of everybody, but most people don't think like me and you think. We all think here, there's still a huge perception of it being an illegal narcotic and a drug, and the thought of legalizing a drug in the middle of a health crisis, that the prohibitionists, they're all over that. They're all over their soapboxes. Now it's no longer don't do it. It's, we have to wait. We can't do it in the middle of a health crisis. And that unfortunately resonates with a lot of middle America. Now, they're not necessarily against it, but there's a large, big feeling that it's just not an important thing to worry about right now. We have more important things to worry about, like our president telling us to inject disinfectant. That's a problem. A lot of people are thinking in the aftermath of this that people, governments, both local and government, national or federal rather, are going to be looking at this as a potential revenue stream to make up for money that's lost, to make up for all the money that's just been spent and went out. This would be a perfect opportunity for a lot of these governors who may have been on the fence about it or may have been conflicted because their polling showed it wasn't as popular in their party. Now they've got a great excuse to say, hey, listen, I may not like it, but it's going to generate 40 billion, 50 billion, 60 billion, 80 billion over 20 years. We need this money right now.
Well, we saw Canada talk about how they hit $4 billion last year, right? So they had $4 billion in revenue over their legal market, over the legal markets. Obviously, Canada's a bigger place than our states are here, but we're seeing states, man, even under quarantine, states are pulling in record numbers in cannabis sales still.
Well, shit show California is in the last year since they've legalized. I mean, utter and complete nightmare in their regulatory structure. They still brought in $1 billion. When that thing's running smooth, when we're really at that point, of course, it's absurd not to be looking at this as not the cure-all silver bullet. We're coming out of this coronavirus going to have a lot more problems than simply budgets. But that's a huge piece of it. And it can only help. It can only bring in more revenue. And when people are in a bad spot, maybe it'll help them out a little bit, as opposed to going to the bar and get shit-faced.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's another question. We have legal curbside sales of alcohol, but we can't give people medicine. But anyways, guys, we started a little late, right? We started a little late. We ended a little late. For the guys, those of you who are tuned in, if you guys haven't found us yet, we're in the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio. Come find us on Facebook, like us, love us. We're also on Twitter. We're also on Instagram. OPIA Farms. Find these guys. Genetics. You guys have any questions? Thomas, thank you for coming on today. An amazing, very educational show today, which has been nothing but great. You answered a lot of questions I think people really have, and probably hopefully smoothed a lot of fears that people might be thinking about when they enter, a no-till or even just to throw their first seed in the ground. And that you guys are available. Thomas, just real quick again, tell everybody where they can find you guys again, and then how they can reach out to you.
Right on Facebook and Instagram, OPIA FARM, and then there'll be www.opiafarmgenetics.com. And so they can reach out, message the farm page directly. I'd love to answer questions. I want to give a big shout out to my mother and sister if they're listening. Big influences in our farm and what we do. I wouldn't have gardening if it wasn't for my mother. But thank you for having me on.
No, man, hey, it's been great. You've been nothing but a huge supporter to the show. We've been going back and forth on Messenger. It's great to actually finally get you on. And hey, this is a big industry that we have here, and without the guys that are playing in the soil, then we don't have anybody doing anything really. You know what I mean? So it's really important, and then especially again this day and age where we're talking about grow your own. Get to know your geneticist. Find the strains. I mean, it all kind of comes together in what you're doing with OPIA Farms is what we preach, right? Clean grows, no till, no chemicals. Know your nutrients, know your bases. Research. How do we research? You know what I mean? YouTube is a great resource for research, which I also want to do a quick plug. There is, guys, an official trailer out on YouTube right now called CBD Nation. Just go Google that real quick. Check that out. Throw them some support and some love to make sure that this actually goes, because I think this is another great important shows. But like Thomas said, and like the other Thomas said, and we always say, the information's out there. Just reach out for it. You can send us questions. You have any law issues, you can talk to Vermont Cannabis Solutions. Timothy Fair would be more than happy to help guide you in whatever direction you need to go into. And then also, we have cultivators that like to come on the show, like you, Thomas, and then also our other, Vermont Grow Coach and Thomas. You guys are really the most important people to getting these guys going. You know what I mean? It's knowing the medication, knowing what they need, knowing what they need to grow, proper genetics. We talk about genetics all the time, guys. Research your genetics. Figure out what they're doing, how they're doing. Don't rely on what you have to be perfect, because, as we know, 90% of the world is not perfect, and cannabis seeds are definitely in that mix. Clones are a great way to go, guys. The season has started, so we're really excited. The sun's out. Lockdowns seem to be being lifted in certain areas. Careful. Go out there, play with your plants. Plants need love too, but it's a great time to get your first gardening going, guys. If you have any questions, again, these are great resources to talk to. Brandon Barberio, thank you again for being on the show. Love you guys. We'll be here next week. Check out the pages again, In the Weeds, Prohibition Talk Radio, In the Weeds, Vermont, Weed Talk Radio, and Prohibition Talk Radio, guys. We're peacing out. That's it. That's all we got for this week. Well, guys, we'll talk to you next week.